Welcome to Legal Video Resource. I'm Jason Wheathalter. Today we're looking at the Yongnuo YN300 LED light. So this is the Yongnuo YN300, and in particular, this is the YN300 or triple I. This is a LED video light, and in particular, this is the bicolor model of the YN300. It is about 6-7 inches wide, about 6 inches tall. It's only a couple of inches deep when these barn doors are actually closed, and it only weighs about 1.5 pounds, 2 pounds. It's a pretty lightweight, really flexible, really great little LED light for legal video, evidentiary video, and deposition video in particular. We're going to be talking about this light today from the perspective of legal videographers. I'm not going to go into all the specs, all the details, the CRI level. If you want information like that, there are lots of other reviews, lots of other content out there about this light. But in particular, I want to talk about it from the perspective of what legal videographers will find useful about this light. So like I said, it's already pretty small, pretty lightweight. I can close down these barn doors. It's a really tiny package, fits really nicely into a deposition kit or into your camera bag. The reason it is called the YN300 is that there are actually 300 LEDs that make up this panel. So if you're looking at the lights in the Yongnuo YN series, the 600, 900, 1200, so on, they're typically named for the number of LEDs in the panel. So this one has 300 LEDs. In particular, this is the bicolor model. And when I say bicolor model, you can buy models of this light where all 300 LEDs are dedicated to a single color or a single Kelvin temperature. This light, these LEDs are split up between 2 separate Kelvin temperatures, which makes it a great choice for legal and deposition videographers, which we'll talk about in a minute. 50% of these LEDs are dedicated to 5500K daylight. The other 50% are dedicated to 3200K incandescent or typically indoor kind of light. So what that allows you to do is essentially dial in the amount of color you want for each light. So if you're an evidentiary videographer, you might end up going from indoors to outdoors really quickly. And while this light would never be bright enough to compete with the sun, it would work as a fill light, or maybe if you're going outside to inside and you need to fill some area in an inside space for an inside shoot, you can definitely do that with this light. For deposition videographers, the same thing kind of holds true. You kind of know that you're going to be in an office, typically, or a conference room from day to day to record video, but certain conference rooms or certain offices have windows. Certain other ones don't have windows. Sometimes you have incandescent light bulbs that are in those offices, or maybe LED light bulbs that are in those offices that are balanced for one color versus fluorescent lights, which are balanced for a different color. So this bicolor model really helps you to be able to be flexible and dial in the color of light that you want. So again, 5500K, 5600K, that kind of range, that's daylight, exterior light, light from the sun. It's typically a little bit cooler, a little bit more of a blue hue, but that color, that Kelvin value can kind of vary depending on the time of day, the angle at which the sun is from you, and also, overcast conditions, different things can affect that color temperature a little bit, as well as the brightness. Interior light, most light, if you buy a soft white light bulb off the shelf at a big box store, that's going to be in the 300 to 3500K range. That 3200K is typical incandescent filament style light bulbs, but that 300 to 3500K range, that's kind of interior light typically. Fluorescent lights typically are about 4000 Kelvin. That can vary a little bit. They can vary in manufacturing, they can vary in usage. They can also vary based upon what it is, what kind of light fixture they're in, and what the reflective material is, and it might change the color temperature a little bit. The other thing that's a little bit funky about fluorescent fixtures is they also tend to throw off an interesting tint, usually a little bit green or a little bit magenta on the other side. So this light helps you to kind of dial that in. This light also allows you to dial in the brightness. So you can dim all the way down to basically 1% and then all the way up to 100% of the brightness of these LEDs. Now, if you're looking at the controls on this, it actually says 99 because there's only 2 spots for 2 digits. So you don't actually see the 100%, but you can dim all the way up from 0% to 100% on these lights, which is really nice because that basically allows you to lock in any brightness and almost any color within that 3200 to 5500 range. The other nice thing about this light are the accessories that you get with it. So first of all, these barn doors, these are included and bolted on ready to go. They don't do as much to shape the light as barn doors did on like Fresnel style lights, because Fresnel style lights, there's a single point source of light. And so when you put a barn door on it, you can really shape the way that light looks. On this light, on the other hand, there's actually 300 point sources of light. So when you try to shape the light with the barn door, it doesn't work as well as a Fresnel typically would. But it's still useful, especially if you're looking at the light from, say, the side. Because if I have this angled just so, you can't see any of the LEDs on the front panel because this barn door is in the way. But if I were to move it out of the way, now you can see all those LEDs, and if this light were on, it'd be a little bit distracting out of the corner of your eye, but you can use the barn door to at least block the light from, kind of shining out of the corner of somebody's eye, although you can't really shape the light like you might be used to with a tungsten or incandescent style Fresnel or light such as that. And that's because of the multiple point sources of light in this light as compared to a Fresnel. It also comes with a couple of diffusers. The first one I want to talk about is this clear diffuser. If you're used to working with softboxes or diffusion gel, this doesn't diffuse nearly as well or nearly as much as those two options. These gels work by just sliding them into the side here, and they actually click into place. And as you can see, it definitely diffuses the LEDs some, it obfuscates them some, but it just doesn't quite give you that great soft light that you might be used to or might want to get like you would out of a softbox or some diffusion gels. The other gel is this orange gel, and it works the same way. You slide it in the side, it actually clicks into place, and it diffuses the light as well as changes it from daylight, or 5600K, to incandescent light, 3200K. This diffuser, obviously on a bicolor light, has very limited value because you're only going to be changing the color of one light, and those are the 5500K lights, but you already have 3200K lights in the LED itself, so why would you want to do both? You typically wouldn't. If you really needed to make something really, really, really warm in color, then you could turn on both LEDs in here and also add this filter, and you might be able to change the color temperature significantly, but typically you're not going to need to do that. You're going to be somewhere in that 5500 to 3200K range. So this particular diffuser has kind of minimal value. This one works not as well as I would like it to. The one thing that is really nice about it is it goes in front of the LEDs. So it actually does a really great job of protecting these LEDs because there's actually nothing in front of this panel. I can just like touch each individual LED if I wanted to. There's nothing that's protecting these LEDs from any kind of impact or anything else. So I typically have this diffuser in at all times just to protect the LEDs. The light also comes with a small stand, so you can actually connect this light to a stand, and this is unique to the 300 series, the small series of lights in the YN series. There are other lights that are small that also have this, but in the lights that I've worked with, the 300, 600, 900, and 1200, this is the only one that comes with a stand, and that's because the other lights are much larger, heavier, and don't have an included hinge like I'm holding onto right now. This light also comes with a handle, which I can screw into the included mount down here. And I could hold on this light using the handle. So this is really great if you had an assistant on set or something else and you wanted them to hold the light or move around with the light. They can get wherever they want and hold this light in really close, do whatever they want, and they're not holding onto the light itself. They can use the handle instead. The Yongnuo series of lights also come with remotes. These remotes are really great because they're actually based on Bluetooth, the communication technology is, so they don't require line of sight. In other words, I don't have to point this remote at this light or at a specific part of this light to kind of hit the infrared receiver or to hit the receiver. I can have this under the table, around the corner, 15, 20 feet away, and I can control this light remotely. So the remotes are great. The remote can also control up to 8 different channels of lights. And what that allows you to do is if you had 8, 10, 12 of these lights on set, you could put a couple of them on the same channel, but then have different lights on separate channels on set. And so you can control this one separate from another light in the studio or on set, all from the same remote. You don't have to have 10 remotes. You can have one remote that controls 8 different channels, and typically that would be 8 different lights, but you could theoretically have a couple of lights on the same channel. So those are some of the accessories that come with it. Another accessory that's built into it is this mount, and this is really, really handy. I'm gonna close these barn doors down. This is really handy because, first of all, it's hinged. So what that allows me to do is if I were to mount this onto a light stand or something else, I can actually then change the angle of this light up and down, which again is a really handy feature to have because now you can really direct the light. It doesn't twist in any way. You would just turn the entire light stand if you had this on the light stand, but it does tilt up and down. The other nice thing about this hinge and the mount is there are 2 ways to mount this light. One is a 1/4-20 screw hole. And so that's what this handle uses, is a small 1/4-20 screw. But if you had a light stand with a 1/4-20 mount, or if you had an arm of some sort or another mounting device that had a 1/4-20 mount, you can mount this light directly to it. The other nice thing about this mount is it also is a cold shoe or hot shoe mount. And so the little stand that it was on earlier, it actually just slides into the stand and it's a hot shoe receiver, cold shoe receiver. What's great about that is if you're using it as an evidentiary videographer, maybe as a deposition videographer, you can actually connect this directly to your camera. So you can slide this into the cold shoe mount, tighten down the support, and you're ready to go basically. So now I have this light on my camera and I can walk around, shoot whatever I want. It's not super easy, but I can rotate, I can tilt this light with one hand. So if I wanted to bounce it off a ceiling or something else, I can tilt it up. I can move all the barn doors and I can shoot like this. I'm ready to go. This is a pretty compact package. The only downside to this is that there are only 2 power options for this light, one being a wall adapter, the second being a Sony NPF or L series style battery, which isn't horrible, but that means you have to have a battery for the light and a battery for your camera. And quite frankly, I mean, this light is only a couple pounds, but when I add a battery to it, it's another couple pounds. The camera is a couple pounds, add a battery to it is another pound or 2. This gets heavy pretty quick. I wouldn't want to handhold this all day. If I had a shoulder mount, this would be pretty comfortable for the vast majority of the day. But I wouldn't want to handhold this whole thing for hours on end. So if you're shooting handheld a lot, this is a great light to have on your camera because you can move very quickly with it. But be aware that it does add a couple of pounds, and those couple of pounds, like I mentioned, there are 2 types of power options for this light. One is a wall adapter. It doesn't come with the light itself. Yongnuo is trying to keep the price down from what we could tell on the light and the accessories, so it doesn't come with the wall adapter. And frankly, a lot of people don't use it with the wall adapter. Legal videographers, or if you're in a studio, you probably will. So the AC adapter for a wall outlet is an additional 15, 20 bucks. The light itself with these accessories is around $60, $70, $75, depending on when you get it, where you get it, and also what version you get of it. So it's a relatively expensive light. You can have this with the wall adapter for 100 bucks, or around $100. Batteries, the batteries that it uses are actually Sony NPF or L series style batteries, like I mentioned before. And you can get these in various sizes. They're really common. They're really easy to find from either Sony or third-party manufacturers. This is a third party from Castar. It works really well with this light. You can also get a bunch of different chargers for these batteries. So you can charge 1 battery, 2 batteries, 4 batteries at a time. These are great batteries to have around because they're compatible with a lot of different devices. This is one of them. So the battery just slides in the back, clicks in, and now this light is ready to go. So if I power this light on, right now it's on. The information on the back is up. I can see what's going on. Obviously the LEDs aren't on. That's because I haven't actually dialed in the dimmer for any brightness. So if I start to turn these on, there, the LEDs are now on, and you can kind of see how they look. And that's the 5500K LEDs. This studio is balanced for daylight, so this should look like white light because the studio is actually balanced for daylight. So this should not change the color really at all in the studio. Every light is a little bit different in terms of its color temperature, so be aware that sometimes there's a little bit of a shift, but for the most part, they're pretty close. But this is the Yongnuo YN300. Over here, I have a standard desk lamp with a 60 watt daylight balanced LED bulb in it. And this is an LED bulb that you could pick up from any big box store. It's 60 watts. I just have it for comparison here. This light now is on the 5500K LEDs. I'm going to turn it up to 10%. And the brightness is pretty close, and so is the color value. As you can see, here's my hand under the desk lamp. Here's my hand under this. This Yongnuo YN300 is a little bit darker. So let's dial it up to, this is 40%. So here's my hand under the desk lamp. Here's my hand under the Yongnuo, and they're pretty close in temperature. I'll put these right next to each other. They're also pretty close in color. Now, from my naked eye, this daylight balanced LED in the desk lamp looks slightly warmer and also slightly green. This Yongnuo YN300 actually looks slightly blue, a little bit cooler. Not much, but just a little bit different from the lights in this studio, but they're both pretty close. Now, I just have the 5500K LEDs on. If I wanted to turn this over, I just click a button here on the back and it selects the 3200K LEDs, and I can dial those in. And so now if I dial in just 10%, it's definitely warmer, and actually the color is quite a bit closer, just adding 10% of the 3200K LEDs. This also allows me to have coarse and fine adjustments. So right now I've been working in 10% increments. So if I crank this light up on both the 3200 and the 5500K LEDs, you can see how bright this light actually is. Shining down my backdrop, you can see how bright this light actually is compared to everything else in the studio, and how much light I'm getting from all the other lights in the studio. It's a really bright little light. It's a great light for, like I said, deposition video, legal video, because you can do a lot with it. And this is all the LEDs on 100%. So if I turn the 5500 LEDs down, now we're just looking at 3200K light. And so you can see it's much more orange, much more warm in color temperature as compared to this daylight balanced bulb or the 5500K LEDs that are in this light. So it's much more orange in color, but that's great because it lets you kind of balance to whatever color you need. Now I've been talking about this in terms of 10% increments because I can adjust coarse, and also I can adjust fine levels. So now I can dial in by 1% increments. So now it's going to take me a while, but I can dial this down to 0%. I'm at 25%. And now the light's off. But that took a while. So I can go back to coarse, and now I can go 0% to 100% just like that. So that's kind of cool that you can dial in 10% and 1%. Different light manufacturers have different controls, and so sometimes it's always fine adjustments in 1% increments. This one just lets you do both, all from one knob. There's one knob that's both the power button, and it controls all the settings on the back of the light. So I can turn the light off entirely, and there you go, the light's ready to go. So the only kind of downsides to this light are the plastic case that the light is made out of, it works great if you take care of it. But I would be a little bit concerned about using this day to day on like a commercial or movie set, because inevitably somebody's going to knock a light stand over, this is going to fall over, and it's probably going to crack. Will that keep it from functioning? I don't know. I've had these lights for a couple of years, taking good care of them. There are no cracks. It's a really nice single piece of plastic, but it still is plastic. But these lights have worked really, really well. The other thing is a little bit different from this light compared to other lights in the YN series. This light doesn't have a fan of any kind. So the cooling just happens by the air around it. So it cools off on its own. And that's both a good thing and a bad thing, because this light can get a little warm. It doesn't get nearly as hot because LEDs are much cooler in operation. It doesn't get nearly as hot as like a typical incandescent or tungsten light that you might have used on a set. But it still does get kind of warm. So the fan would be nice to cool it down, but it's also nice that there is no fan because there's no noise. So this is a noiseless light. You turn it on, for example, so it's on 99%, 100% of these 3200K LED lights are on. And I'm just gonna hold this up next to my microphone. You're not gonna hear anything. So that's the light. I mean, it's really silent. And so that comes in really handy if you're in a small space, which is kind of what you would want to use this light for, because there's going to be no noise coming from it. So this is a great little light for deposition video and legal video. If you're going to pick one up, I would highly recommend the bicolor version, so you can change colors. You can dial in the color temperature that you want and match the space that you're in. If you have a specific application for the daylight only version, or if you know that the situations that you're going to be in are almost always daylight balanced, go for the daylight balanced one, because it's probably a little bit stronger in terms of the brightness or the light level that it puts off. But if you're looking for a great light to throw on your camera or keep in your kit, I would highly recommend this Yongnuo YN300. It is built really well. It's nice and small and compact, really easy to fit into a deposition kit. Power it from the wall, power it from really inexpensive, easy to find batteries. It has the hot shoe, cold shoe mount and quarter 20 adapters. So you can put this on a light stand or on top of a camera, whatever you want. Control it remotely, have the different diffusers, have the stand itself. It's a really great light. I would highly recommend it for deposition video and legal video. And so that's the Yongnuo YN300 III. Thank you so much for joining us today as we talked about the Yongnuo YN300 LED light. If you found this video helpful or interesting, I encourage you to click subscribe so that you're the first to know about new content posted here. Also, you might consider sharing it with a friend if they might find it interesting or helpful too. If you have a question or you want more details about what we talked about, let us know in the comments down below. We'll try to answer those there or maybe in a future video. Again, thanks so much for joining us, and we will see you next time on Legal Video Resource.